I'm Sofia Quiroga, Associate Professor at Xi'an Yaton Liverpool University in Suzhou, China, and today I present Moholy-Nagy's light probe, the Replica's legacy. I will start describing the device, and then I will trace the timeline of the different modifications and replicas. As you know, Moholy-Nagy, besides exploring painting, leading the metal workshop, writing and editing books, and applying new typographies at the experimental innovative Bauhaus School, also explored the creativity possibilities of photography and film as art. Both photography and film work with light, which was also the main focus of Moholy-Nagy's research in painting, sculpture, photoplastic, photographs, typography, and theater sets. He started his research in paintings and photocollages, exploring space through transparencies. Moholy-Nagy was interested in the arrested moments of light on canvas and kinetic light plays, both live and recorded as film. His interest in movement and light through space led him to explore its possibilities and build the light probe for an electric stage, which Moholy-Nagy also called the architecture of light. The mobile perforated disc, the rotating glass spiral, and the sliding ball, together with the lighting bulbs, intentionally created the photogram experiment's effect in motion. For Moholy-Nagy, the light probe was a mechanism that illustrates the phenomenon of light and movement, and which applies in space the ideas reflected in his writing production. In Maleric photography film, he presents new media as creative resources capable of reproducing reality as an instrument of creation, highlighting the possibilities of projection. The light probe for an electric stage was a kinetic object composed of moving parts through which light is projected to create patterns and shadows. Often described as the first kinetic sculptor and also the first light sculptor, it reflects Moholy-Nagy's love of motion, technology, and non-traditional materials. The process of creating light probe took 8 years, from 1922 to 1930. Consequently, the prototypes and designs experienced several modifications based on experimentation and marked by success and failures. The light probe was primarily conceived as a projection device for the stage to generate spatial variation through mechanical movement and the use of light, motion, and color. However, it was first unveiled as an autonomous aesthetic object in the Paris Werkbund exhibition in 1930, instead of on the stage. There are a series of associated drawings which were used as plans for the device, some of which were made in collaboration with the engineer Stefan Sebuk, who was actually responsible for the design and construction of the light probe mechanism. The mechanism was built of translucent, transparent, and fritted materials that respond differently to the light, creating different shadow patterns. The mechanism, divided into 3 parts, was mounted on a circular platform divided by 2 transparent cellophane walls and a metal wall made of vertical rods. This one. The 3 sectors will accommodate different playful movements that, together with the material's reflection on the moving mechanism, could create striking optical effects, transforming the space around it. In the first area, the design includes metal flags moved with an irregular wavy motion. In the second space, perforated metal discs move up and down, releasing a little ball on the top which flashes across the area from the right to the left and back again. In the third cell, a glass spiral revolves, producing a virtual cone. This plan for the light probe presents a graphic abstraction of the schematic exploded view, where arrows indicate the movement of ER mechanism and annotate the choreography of the machine's internal parts. The cubits, like multiple and distorted perspective, confound the positions and relationships of the components, indicating Moholy-Nagy's intention to produce a great range of shadow interpretations and simultaneously intercepting patterns in a sequence of slow flickering rhythm, which discs made of polished metal slotted with regularly spaced perforation and sheets of glass. As I mentioned previously, Stefan Sebuk was the engineer responsible for the light probe design, details, and construction. He developed a series of drawings to specify the object and facilitate its construction, including plans, section, axonometric, and description of the materials used for making the artifact. The drawings show the components of the mechanism its movement and the relationship between them. This specific plan showed the front elevation, cross-section, and ground plan of the device and each particular section. Details from the engine and valves. So located inside the body and parallel to its front side is a second panel. This panel bears a circular opening about which electric light bulbs of different colors are mounted. Thus, the interior plates provided an additional indirect light source inside the box to reflect off the back half of the sculpture, invisible to the viewer looking through the front aperture. In accordance with a predetermined plan, individual bulbs glow at different points in order to get the best possible play of shadow formations on the back wall of the closed box with the on-off sequence. Moholy-Nagy also outlined the placement of the color light bulbs and the lighting time sequence. Finally, the light device was first shown on the 20th exhibition of decorative artists in the German section. It was featured at the Werkbund exhibition in Paris the same year that it was built, along with a short film light display black, white, grey made by Moholy-Nagy to demonstrate and celebrate his new machine. Moholy-Nagy describes this model as a mechanical apparatus made of different materials and shapes displayed in a cube of 120 per 120 centimeters with a circular opening on the front side, probably designed to be covered by a translucent screen. On the back of this panel and around the opening were located 70 colored bulbs, yellow, green, blue, red, and white, with a power of 15 watts, and 5 headlamps with a power of 100 watts. Following the precise notation, the glow of the bulbs illuminated a continuously moving mechanism built from translucent, transparent, and frigid material that generate a play of shadows on the back wall of the box. This wall could be removed to project the shadows on a bigger screen or even into space, and thereby transform it. He realized that the device existed in two forms simultaneously, as a metal glass kinetic structure and its projected image. The piece reveals its meaning when structure, light, and motion come together, idea that is so difficult to express on drawings or pictures. So he recorded Light Play, a black, white, grey, a film that transforms the three-dimensional form into two dimensions and captures light and shadow as elements equal to metal or glass. He defined the light equipment as a device used for demonstrating both plays of light and manifestation of movement. Through filmic techniques such as overlapping, close-ups, and negative film, Moholy-Nagy produced an abstracted dynamic work radically removed from its original source. And of course, it results from his earlier research on pictures and drawings. It shows superposition of metal objects and shadows reappearing, suddenly the shadow of a balloon, with a halo or raw light playing on the shadow of the interior light. That is not only a Moholy-Nagy's abstract film, it synthesized his attempts to visualize the act of seeing from multiple viewpoints. Light prop for an electric stage underwent several changes and restoration due to misuse and the fragility of its components. The article Light Prop for an Electric Stage, published by Moholy-Nagy in the journal Typeform, anticipated the potential failure of the lighting device performance. He remarked that the light prop displayed at the Paris exhibition represents only a modest initial attempt to introduce the possibilities of light technology to the public. The fact is that it broke when it was displayed first in Paris. Like a precious piece of art, Moholy-Nagy took the device with him around the world, no matter the cost. When he moved to London in 1935, he realized how fragile the object was. Therefore, he added an external frame to stabilize and prevent further damage. When Moholy-Nagy moved to Chicago in 1938, other elements like the engine or the glass spiral were replaced and modified. The glass spiral was replaced by a metal one, together with an acrylic wedge located on the base. This was the first transformation. After Moholy-Nagy passed away in 1946, and according to the documents, the Patch-Risinger Museum had the opportunity to keep the machine on a long-term loan. The device came to the museum in a deploration condition with some elements missing and corroded surfaces. And at this point, Jack Washiba, the museum curator, replaced the missing parts and painted the corroded surfaces to hide them. In 1956, the Moholy-Nagy's widow, Sybil Moholy-Nagy, donated a light probe to the Harvard Patch-Risinger Museum. After that, the electric stage underwent several alterations to keep it working in exhibitions around Europe and America. For instance, in 1965, the light probe was restored to be displayed in the Kinetic Art exhibition organized in Eindhoven. The restoration, made by William Wainwright, consisted of removing the paint used in previous work to hide the corroded surface, replaced some components, and recovered the machine movement. It was the first time that the idea of a replica emerged, but Sybil Moholy-Nagy preferred to restore the original light probe. But after several damage and as a consequence of abroad exhibition loans, like the Pan Abbey Museum, Sybil Moholy-Nagy asked in 1966 for the device coming back due to its poor condition. The idea of build replicas arose again, obtaining the permission from Sybil Moholy-Nagy, who agreed to make no more than 2 copies, and she thought that Moholy-Nagy's work should be preserved by reproducing the device. Light probe was exhibited again in 1968. It was part of the exhibition The Machine as Seen at the End of the Mechanical Age, celebrated at MoMA in New York. As a result of its fragility and difficulties in running the machine safely, it was shown as a static element, and this was when the idea of replicas emerged again. Obtaining permission from Sybil Moholy-Nagy, who agreed for no more than 2 copies to be made. She believed that the best way to preserve Moholy-Nagy's work was to reproduce the device. It was finally reconstructed in 1969 for an exhibition held in New York at the Howard Weiss Gallery, where other contemporary lighting explorations were displayed under the supervision of the Harvard art historian and researcher Nam Pien. 2 copies were produced, one for this exhibition and the other for the 35th Venice Biennale. Both reproductions were kept and finally sent to the Bauhaus archive in Darmstadt and the Van Abbey Museum. The replicas were made by Buddy Flowers, an engineer at MIT, assisted by Nam Pien, who had written her master thesis about light probe for an electric stage. These copies were built after analysis of the original piece, together with the pictures kept in the Harvard archive. The MIT engineer modified some parts to ensure their safety and movement in exhibitions. The last replica was made in 2006, also because of a new show, the Alberts and Moholy-Nagy exhibitions at Tate Museum in London. The replica was made with the approval of Hatula Moholy-Nagy, the artist's daughter, and the concurrence of the 2 European institutions, Bauhaus Archive Berlin and Van Abbey Museum in Eindhoven, which owned earlier replicas made in 1970. So a full-size replica of light probe was commissioned by the Tate as a traveling exhibition copy. The German engineer Jürgen Steger made it. He studied the original light probe, the 1930 pictures and drawings, and the film. All these documents serve as a guide for the new replica. He created also a CAD file to control the visualization, the movement, and also to facilitate the submissions of every element for the fabrication. The model was made to match the Moholy-Nagy original design, preserving even the variety of finished surfaces. In comparison with the original, the 2006 replica operates quickly, smoothly, and precisely, without chatter or creaking, achieving the design fiction put forward in Moholy-Nagy's silent film. The model was made to match the Moholy-Nagy original design. The Harvard Museum acquired it under the agreement that the replica will be lent when possible to major exhibitions, that it will not be considered a work of art, and that Tate could display the reproduction for 1 year every 4. Steger developed, together with the staff members of the museum, a document to the maintenance and well-running of the replica to avoid future problems or damage. Because the instability of the original and its inherent bias The object needs to be adjusted and repaired and also replicated to keep it on running. To show it in movement, as Moholy described it, is a kinetic sculptor. When contrasting Replica with the original light prop, we observe very different choices in machining, selection of parts, finishes, and interlocking articulations of gears and shape, as well as far greater robustness of the Replica's components. So finally, all the pictures, drawings, and even the film work as documents to make possible the replicas. The last one is trying to be as much similar as possible, while the first one includes some small modification to make it more stable and to assure the running. Due to the instability of the initial device and the inherent weakness in its design, the replica needs to be adjusted and repaired, and some pieces also need to be occasionally replaced, keep it running correctly and in good condition. Steger developed together with the museum staff members a document for the replica's maintenance and correct operation to avoid future problems or damage. This document is a record of the pieces that make the light prop for an electric stage possible. It serves as an archive document of the replicas and their components, preserving and showing Moholy-Nagy's research legacy. Thank you for your attention.